I'm trying to use a lighter hand on the bell. I've been told that I hit it a little too hard from time to time. Welcome everybody to the Denver Rotary Club, Club 31. My friends, how are you all? I hope everything is well. Thank you so much for being here. If you could all grab your seats as we get our meeting started here. Just a wee bit early. See, I think this is why I use that heavy hand on the bell. All right, everybody. Welcome again. Welcome to the club. Welcome to Denver Rotary. We're excited to be here. We are kicking things off just a few minutes early. So if you would, I know I just told you to sit down, but if you could stand back up again and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Excellent, thank you. And now I would like to invite up Jean Herman for our inspirational moment.
Stoplights weren't with me on my walk over here. I want to use Louise Westfall's idea. And those that don't know her, she is my pastor friend and a fellow Club 31 member. She quoted from Fred Butcher, "You can survive on your own. You can even grow strong on your own. You can prevail on your own, but you cannot become human on your own." The image of strong man and woman triumphing over adversity is part of our thought process. Rugged individualism goes with being an American. Well, it only goes so far. Even medal-winning Olympic athletes will give credit to their support system, friends, coaches, teammates. It does take a village to create a human, but it takes humans to create a thriving community. From the beginning of time, humans have formed families, kinship groups, teams, clubs, and of course, Rotaries. Rotary was established as a community built around the four-way test. It's impossible to be a Rotarian all by yourself. During the necessary isolations of the pandemic, we survived. Some of us even learned to speak Spanish. Not me. We couldn't wait to get back together in person. But interestingly enough, again, using myself, there's sort of a new nervousness about the whole thing. Do we wear a mask? Do we ask about vaccination? But there may be a greater motivation for Club 31 at this time. It's not just a matter of sitting next to somebody at lunch. We want authentic community where we tell our stories, listen to others, like I did at the peach sale in Mary Frances. We are seeking communities that are deeper and more true. So when we volunteer for a project, or we go to one of the smaller groups, then maybe we schedule coffee afterwards. We get closer. Every Rotary Club I belong to, and I've been in 3, have described itself as being friendly. Well, so are we, but friendliness is not the same skill as building close community and encouraging people that we intend to do that as we intersect in opportunities.
That was great, Jean. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Absolutely. I love that building authentic communities, and to steal a quote from my friend and fellow Rotarian Shannon Stone, being fearlessly authentic. hence my Chuck Taylors and frequent V-necks. Oh, thank you. Yeah. All right, everybody, we are going to keep going here. We're going to keep plugging away. So if I could keep your attention up towards the front of the room. Thank you so much. We are going to be doing our club secretary's report, and Mr. Troy Szymanski, club secretary himself, is going to be coming up and to do that.
All right. Thank you very much, President Ian. Welcome, everybody. It's good to see you here. I do want to point out that we just finished our peach sale fundraiser this previous weekend. Can I just see a show of hands if you were there and were able to help out? This is awesome. Can you also keep your hands up if you purchased any peaches? Can you raise your hand? Awesome. Let's real quick, just round of applause for everybody. I do want to, before getting to the rest of the announcements, I do want to point out that we always talk about signing up, volunteering, coming to do stuff like that if you can. And sometimes you'll hear people talk about it with an air of, how could you say, hesitance about how much effort is going to go into it. You might have seen Jill, you might have seen Lauren in and around, and they seem a higher level of stress. Well, I can say that this is the first peach sale I've ever been a part of. And I told them that I was going to be pretty relaxed about how I talked about it, because that went off without a hitch. So here's to Lauren and everybody else who coordinated it. But it wasn't because it was planned well. It was also because we had an amazing turnout. I think more than 30, 35 Rotarians were there to give a hand. So thank you guys for doing that. And I'll thank you for doing that, because next time I'm going to be pretty aggressive in making sure we have the same turnout, because that definitely made things go a lot easier. We have some birthdays this week. So happy birthday to, and join me in wishing happy birthday to Les, Maury, Larry, Bob, Mike, Mac, and Jim this week and next week. We've got 2 weeks before our next in-person meeting, so I've included everybody for the next 2 weeks. If you guys got missed, if you had a birthday during one of those weeks, where I was still figuring out how many weeks we were going before we were meeting, apologies. So if you had a birthday early in August or late in July, happy birthday from me. That's going to be it for me. President Ian, back to you.
Thank you, Troy. I appreciate that. And just real quick, is anybody missing a pair of glasses? A pair of, I don't know what kind of glasses that they are. If you are, let us know. They're up here. And while we're at it, if you own a green Honda Civic, your lights are on. And now I'm going to invite Mike Deneen up to talk about why we all have balloons hanging from our chairs.
Wonderful. And welcome everybody, distinguished guests, colleagues, Rotarians, friends, and our speaker today. So everybody might be asking, what are these balloons all about? And some of you might even be asking, what is Rotary all about? And the answer to that question is that Rotary is what you make it. And with that being said, there might be an individual that comes to mind, someone you admire, someone that has a specific quality that maybe makes them a leader or an exceptional individual, a mentor, or even a word or a value, some of which you'll hear at the end of the meeting today, where we speak about that we try to do things fairly. And does it benefit everyone concerned? All of these images may come to you in a word or in a person. So I would ask you today to take a moment and think and consider if you happen to have a person in mind or a quality or a value. And on your table, there are markers. Please feel free to grab a marker and write on that balloon a name or a quality that comes to mind, and let that travel with you. And please share that with the individual that you have in mind. You could put that on their car, on their office door at their home, or even better yet, give that to them. That being said, please let them travel with you, because if you don't, those values, those people, they will remain here in this room. And if you leave with them and you let it go, those important values, those things that we cherish, will simply float away. So please make sure that they find a place, they find an individual. And if anyone happens to think of one, please feel free to share. And there you go. So please take these with you today and enjoy.
Thank you very much, Mike. And now I would like to invite Shannon Stone up here to make a quick comment. Last week was Alt Week. And so last week was a week where we didn't actually have a standing lunch meeting, but rather had smaller group meetings all around Denver here. So, and Shannon was one of our hosts, one of our coordinators. So I'm going to ask her to share her experience a little, just a couple minutes here.
Thank you, everybody. So Ian and Lauren, thank you so much for inviting me to share about the Alternative Week. I know that Matt, Ian, and Lisa also were doing Alternative Week, so I highly encourage you to take advantage of it. I don't know how I can encapsulate as much fun as we had in 2 minutes. So what we did is we had an opportunity to go to one of my very favorite restaurants called Jing in the Denver Tech Center. When you first walk in, there is an environment, an energy of distinguished passion. When you walk into the bar area, there's a firewall on your right-hand side, and we sat about 14 people in high tops. We had these amazing appetizers. We had Tito's and tonic, and we had martinis and wine. And I think what was really special about gathering everybody in this way is that in this room, we know each other sitting in little round circles, right? But when we take the time to gather in new and different ways, we connect with each other in new and different ways. And our inspirational speech with Jean is about growing closer with each other, learning something new and unique about each other so that we can find those alignments and see where we connect from a heart space, from a business space, from a family space. So I really encourage you all to take an opportunity, come meet some new people, meet them in a new and different and impassioned way. The next Alternative Week is on September 9th. And so we only have in my particular group at Jing's, we have 14 spaces. But if there is more interest, I can always ask to see if we can expand that. So please take the opportunity to connect with your folks, your fellow Rotarians in a new and special and different way. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Shannon. I appreciate it. And I will echo the fact that the alt weeks were, in my experience, have been a great way to connect on a different level and get to know people on a different level. So really quickly, just want to make a quick announcement that Troy asked me to make here, that past club president Pam Adams has agreed to serve a one-year term as an at-large member of the District 5450 Executive Committee. In addition to past club president Jim Johnston serving as our district governor in 23-24, and immediate past club president Debbie Beasley serving as our Area 1 assistant governor, this is yet another great additional effort Club 31 members are making to participate at the district level. So congratulations, Pam, and thank you so much for your continued service to Rotary. And now this is one of my favorite parts of any meeting is I'm going to call Sid up here and let you take it away, my friend.
Thanks, President Ian. On behalf of the Rotary Club Foundation, I am really very proud and very honored to be able to give this particular check out. I have a personal interest in seeing the success of this organization. And through the initiative of our Rotary member, Les Volpe, we have selected We the People to be a new grantee for our foundation's gifts. It's a remarkable, unique organization and an invaluable one. If you're interested in youth and education, which is one of our targets, and equally important, if you're interested in good government, the rule of law, and citizens who value American principles of democracy and constitutional law, then We the People is an organization, a new Rotary grantee that you will have great affinity for. So Les, let me hand you the check and thank you for all that you guys do.
Thank you, Sid. I want to express my deep appreciation to the Rotary Foundation for this grant and to Jack Green and the grant committee for conferring this benefit upon what I consider to be an extremely important educational program. I first became associated with the program when my daughter went through it. And I said to myself, if there is an educational program that will cause 17-year-old kids to study so intensely the foundation of this country, the formation of the Constitution, the 27 amendments that have passed in the 230 years since, as well as the philosophical background of government and citizen, and as Sid pointed out, the rule of law, and study so hard in the course of an entire year, then I've got to become a part of this program. And so for the past 28 years, I have been involved as a coach at a variety of high schools here in town and throughout the state, and also as a judge at the district competition, the state competition, and the national competition. The national competition is the accumulation of all of the state champions back in Washington, D.C. And I will tell you that Colorado has been a particularly strong program. We have been the national champion many, many times. But I thank you for your contribution to the program. I will also indicate that I know that there is a great deal of talent in this Rotary Club, and I hope to get you involved as coaches and judges and otherwise participate in this program. I know that your efforts will be well rewarded and you'll be very impressed with these students. So thanks again to the club for the contribution. I am hoping that we will be able to bring students here to perform before this club in early December. I'm working with Rick Lutold and Peg Johnson with regard to bringing the students here so that you can hear them actually respond to these deep constitutional questions at a meeting of this club. But again, thanks very much. I'm going to turn the microphone over to the state coordinator for this program, Chris Elnicky.
Thanks, Les. Thanks, Les, for your civic virtue and the many years of dedication you've given to the We the People program in Colorado. I am Chris Elnicky. I'm the executive director of the Colorado Center for Civic Learning and Engagement. We're a nonprofit, nonpartisan education organization with the mission to promote civic education programs in Colorado's K-12 schools. We achieve our mission by providing professional development workshop for teachers, support materials for classrooms, and civic events for students. C3LE currently acts as the Colorado State Coordinator for several national programs, and you've already heard that includes We the People. And we've been doing this work with our predecessor organizations for over 30 years. And almost 30 years ago, I was an 8th grade civics history teacher at Thunder Ridge Middle School. And after spending a morning judging student We the People performances for another teacher in my building, I decided to get trained and implement the program myself. And my challenges were like most teachers that take on We the People. How do you figure out how to incorporate these 6 units of study into your current scope and sequence, carefully selecting the best readings and lessons from the We the People book and additional sources, and then prepare my students for performance-based assessments in which they demonstrate their learning about key constitutional issues in a mock congressional hearing where adult community leaders take on the role of the congressional committee. No matter the level, elementary, middle school, high school, the 6 units essentially focus on the same groups of questions. Examples include from Unit 1, what are the philosophical and historical foundations of the American political system? Or Unit 6, what challenges might face American constitutional democracy? So after my students had experienced learning in all 6 units, they were put into small groups and assigned to one of the units. Their task was to address 3 key questions in that unit, including historical information, case law, national and local current events, and prepare a 4-minute opening statement in which each student participated and as the team evaluated and defended positions on relevant historical and contemporary issues. Additionally, they readied themselves for 6 minutes of follow-up from the adults, in which the entire team contributed as they think on their feet and have a conversation to further demonstrate their constitutional knowledge. These hearings in which student groups testify can be as simple as presenting to other professionals in the building, or at competing at a state or national level competition in which the simulated congressional committee members are made up of folks like Les and politicians and judges and scholars. In the case of my school, it grew into a school-wide event where we would invite in over 50 judges and have over 600 eighth graders testifying throughout the building. Other front range districts like Jeffco and Poudre and Adams 12 have similar building-wide hearings. At the same time, a strong hub of high schools representing all of Colorado's congressional districts were competing at district and state competitions. Around 2010, standards changed, federal support diminished. These institutionalized uses of middle and elementary school level became less common. Over the past 10 years, though, we've seen a tick up in new high schools adopting the program and requiring it to be part of their government courses. Examples include Thornton, Salida, Buena Vista, and Eagle Crest High School. Aurora Central and Overland High School have found success in embedding this program into their second language courses. Districts involved with the state competition over the past 5 years have included, and you'll notice this represents almost all the corners of Colorado and really all the types of learners in Colorado: Denver, Aurora, Adams 12, Douglas, Cherry Creek, St. Vrain, Boulder, Brighton, 27J, Westminster, Elizabeth, Buena Vista, Platte Canyon, Mullen, Valor, Collegiate Prep Academy, South Park, Ridgeway, Lake County, Haxton, Salida, Gilcrest, Greeley. And we currently have schools in Pueblo, Como, one of the smallest districts in the state, Lyons, Kremling, and Grand Junction inquiring about the program. So what's the power of We the People? It's learning a lot in a relevant way. It's connecting the past to current state. It's being strategic as a team. So much to say, so little time to say it. It's a lot of editing, a lot of rewriting, conferring, speaking, real literacy, performing for experts and community members, expanding the walls of the school, not just another grade and something done for a teacher. And finally, it's a shared experience that becomes a community learning event and celebration. This Rotary grant will help us train new teachers in the Denver area. Later in the year, we do hope to have students here so you can experience it firsthand. Thank you again for your time and support.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate that. And now I would like to invite, Mac West, president and owner of Informal Learning Experiences, and Danielle Gilbert, MD candidate, University of Colorado School of Medicine, up to give us a presentation on World Community Services.
I'm really pleased to be able to introduce Danielle to us today. Second-year medical student in the Global Health Program, as we just heard. She's a native of Switzerland, which I found rather interesting, although she's lived here most of her life. Got her bachelor's in public health in 2017. And in some of the intermediate years, she spent time traveling to Haiti, where she's been working with rural healthcare groups. And that's something that really hit home after what we've been seeing on the news about Haiti these days. And the pandemic has altered a lot of the programs for the global health projects just because of the limitations on travel. But she's going to tell us how that has been accommodated and how she's working with the local Burmese community to deal with health literacy programs.
Thank you so much for having me today. I just firstly want to say thank you all so much for your support. As was mentioned, our global health track had to undergo some pretty quick changes this year, and we decided to focus on plugging in locally into international communities. So with the help of the scholarships that Rotary provided, many students were able to use the summer to really plug into refugee and immigrant communities near them, as opposed to potentially seeking out other projects just due to the travel restrictions. So the project that I ended up becoming linked up with is a community participatory research model So I'm going to just go over that really quick. This is what the NIH defines as community participatory based research, or CBPR, because that's a lot to say. There's not going to be a quiz over this later, but all of these fundamentals are pretty much just having us intentionally focus on the community's perspective in our research. So we are looking at populations that previously have had health disparities or are currently experiencing health disparities. And a requirement is that the community members collaborate on all aspects of the project from start to finish. And additionally, that they are involved in the program through every step of the way, with one common goal being that we are making interventions that are creatively catered to the needs of individual populations. So we actually, as a university, have a history of partnership with the Burmese refugee community in Denver. So in 2014, medical students identified this community and really just started sitting down and seeing what they needed, which brought us to 2015, which is where through surveys, conversations, meetings, medical students were able to identify key health concerns within the community, which they stated as problematic alcohol use. In 2016 through 2018, they launched the Youth Leadership Program at Grace Apartments, which allowed youth navigators to help individuals within that community get connected to healthcare resources. And we're still using the community health leaders today. They're just now not quite youth. They're in their early 20s. And in 2019, the community officially identified problematic alcohol use as the main health concern that they would like to see addressed. And they saw that health literacy was really what was lacking. People didn't quite have an understanding of alcohol, how it can be used safely and how it can be used unsafely. So that brings us to now. So these are my lovely co-investigators and our faculty mentor, all of which will be presenting at some sort of Rotary meeting. So it will be interesting to circle back. So over the summer, we really spent time community building, and with the help of Rotary, we were able to do that. So we went to game nights. We're helping with vaccination clinics, back to school nights. It's been a little bit too fun to be considered research, but it has been a tremendous experience. We really want to make sure that we're building trust within the community and establishing ourselves as members that are going to take their feedback and incorporate them. This fall and moving into next spring, we're going to begin our intervention. So we'll be having health literacy evenings, free, and they will be rewarded with gift cards for attending. And we're going to conduct surveys and interviews to really understand the problem of problematic alcohol use in individuals within this community's day-to-day life and how it's impacting their health outcomes, and additionally providing them some information to be a resource in their community on problematic alcohol use. And the wonderful thing about this project, as you saw beginning back in 2014, is that it's truly longitudinal. So we would like for our relationship with this community and dynamic adaptation to their needs to continue as long as we have medical students that are interested. So for the next 2 years, we'll spend time in this community adapting our intervention and having conversations with them to make sure that we're still meeting their needs. And we'll eventually transition it off to a set of first-year medical students as we leave for residency. So that is what is coming up next, and some very exciting things. We're really excited to see this intervention take off after so many years of checking the pulse of the community and seeing kind of what their needs would be. So I just want to say thank you all so much for your support, and thank you so much for believing in the Global Health Track students and allowing us the opportunity to plug in locally with our communities and work on global health domestically. So I put my email address up there if anybody has any comments, questions, concerns, but thank you all so much again for having me.
Thank you very much. And now I'd like to invite Jim White up to take care of our red bucket. Do we have a microphone? We do not today, no.
Okay, well, while they're trying to find this microphone, the first participant, because actually Carter was supposed to do this today, and I promised to give him the first minute or so here. So Carter's coming up. It's going to cost him $100 or so, right, Carter? We didn't do too well last week, so whatever you want to put in here, and here's,
Okay,
there's
thanks
Carter.
very much. On your tables, I put together a little flyer. This is the Woo Humanity Challenge. It's a District 5450 event.
but really being sponsored now by the Denver Rotary Club Foundation, okay? And it's very self-explanatory, but it's part of the Denver Century Ride. And you can choose, if you want to participate in the event, you can choose from 25, 50, 85 miles or 100-mile rides. And it's basically starts and stops at the shops at Northfield, which is essentially at I-70 in Quebec. So the way you sign up is here at woohumanity.org, and you just follow the instructions. Our team so far is Jim Goddard and Andre Van Hall are going to do 100 miles on a tandem. Jim Mack, Pete Wall, are you guys doing 50? I don't know what you're doing. 50, okay, 50. Brian Sweet, Colleen and Brad Kozad, Alan Friedberg, I think they're all doing 50. So if you want to join them, you can. We also have do it yourself. So if you can't be there on the 25th of September, for instance, Sandy Purcell is going to do Peloton. Bill Emick is going to walk. You can swim, you can run, you can do whatever. Oh, and e-bikes are also allowed for the actual event. Lauren's going to row. Okay. So here are the three things you can do. One, join the team, or you can volunteer. Okay. Or everybody can be involved by supporting. This is an invitation to support our team. Go on our website and the links are there, but you go to giving and then you'll see Denver Rotary Club Foundation. Hit the Woo Humanity button. If you're going to donate to the annual fund, donate to Woohoo. It all goes in the same bucket. You can make a memorial honorarium for somebody as well. So I invite you all to participate. Call me, questions, email, phone. Thanks, everybody. Oh, this is the jersey from last year. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Carter. Now, we don't have a microphone today, so if you want to contribute to the red bucket, please, I'll come by you and then you can come up and make a lot of noise and speak loudly. But before we start that, I wanted to make one announcement. The board of our foundation last week, we met and decided to allow me the opportunity to offer you a new option as well as good news. You are allowed to make an announcement about something about your business or somebody else's business. When I first joined this Rotary Club, it cost you $25 if you even mentioned the name of your business. So now it only costs you $20. Now that's a $5 discount. But anyway, I want you to notice how great my hair looks this morning because I had a haircut this morning. And my barber, who is a young lady who does all the hair blow dry and everything, she said, I want to contribute to that Rotary Club of yours. So here's her $20. Her name is, her salon is up in Genesee. And so she said, I want to contribute. So this is for the Genesee Salon. It's up in the Genesee Fitness Center, right next door to the fitness center. So if you want to get a good haircut, I'd say call Tina. And I'll give you her number, and she's wonderful. Here's her $20. Now, who else? Over here, we have a announcement over here. You can either come up to the mic real quickly, or you can just speak loudly.
So today, my son sent me a text, and it was his 401k account and how much he had saved. And so, being a financial person, I was so proud that he started putting his money in right away, and he's already made his, in 3 years, it's actually grown into a nice, sensible number. So I was very proud of it.
I'm gonna put $100 in the bucket.
I don't see the $100.
I know, but I'm gonna put it on mine. I don't have it. Last week, in the span of 7 days, I graduated with a 4.0 from my paralegal program. I got a job offer. And this Rotary Club knocked it out of the park for the peach sale. I'm exhausted and I'm gonna sleep all weekend, but I just want to thank everybody. And let me tell you something, that gentleman that just walked in the back door, who I'm going to embarrass, Mark Whipper, has got the strongest arms and the strongest back
and moved at least 100, 300 cases of peaches for delivery. So thank you all who bought peaches, who helped Saturday morning, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Wow, what a week I had last week.
I just wanted to let everybody know that, good news, Steve Mass, my lovely father, had heart surgery, open heart surgery. I'm gonna do credit card. Maybe, no. Had open heart surgery a week ago this last Monday. On Sunday, he was able to come home. Everything went well. People have been asking for updates, sending so much love. So just wanted to let you guys know that he so appreciates it and is looking forward to being able to come back to Rotary here soon.
Good news to congratulate Jill.
I know. So real quick, I just wanted to share that I had a meeting about 3 weeks ago with a family. I'm the CEO of Denver Kids that is looking at making an estate gift to sponsor a partnership with Denver Scholarship Foundation to really build a deep model around career and college readiness and social emotional learning. And this individual was an orphan of World War II and was very much connected to how Denver Kids was founded as a response to orphan boys in World War II. So I'm hearing a response later today, maybe even naming scholars after this family. So I thought it was just a really cool connection to how this all started.
Awesome. We gotta. Yep.
I gotta have one more back here.
All right. One more good news here.
All you virtual guys.
Yeah.
Mike's quick. I'm just delighted to hear the Steve as well.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Chuck. I love it.
Back over to Ian. I just gotta tell you one thing. I've been, promoting co-op school nights all the time. My granddaughter is a senior this year. She worked as a summer intern for HP. Got paid about $28 an hour plus a $6,000 signing bonus. Now she's been given a job offer. She hasn't even done her senior year yet. They don't want her to work during the year. They want her just to study. And her new job offer is for $80 grand a year when she graduates next year from school. Good place to go if you've got some experience.
Beautiful. Well, thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. Beautiful. Yep. Virtual people. There will be a link in the recap so that you can go online and pay. And now real quick, I also want to say thank you to the Warwick's Director of Sales and Marketing, Lewis Riley, for personally donating his time on his day off yesterday to make us peach cobbler using Palisade peaches from our sale last Saturday. Lewis, who's from Mississippi, dusted off one of his Southern peach cobbler recipes, special for us. Please join me in thanking Lewis. And now the long-awaited Rick Luthold. And he's walking a little slow, so it might be a little longer.
That's right. not gonna rabbit to the microphone today. Thanks everybody for being here today. We have a wonderful speaker for us. As many of you see when you drive around town, there's a lot of folks camped out on the street. There's a lot of issues with the unhoused as we go through the community. And our guest today is Ms. Britta Fisher. She is the Chief Housing Officer and Executive Director for the Department of Housing Stability for the City of Denver. For HOST is a short acronym for them. Britta was appointed by Governor Hickenlooper some time ago for the State Housing Board, served 8 years there and was chair. Served with a couple of nonprofits, mpowered and with Localworks in the Metro District area here, working with economic development and strategies for dealing with some of the issues that we're talking about here today. Most recently, though, in 2018, she was appointed by Mayor Michael Hancock to lead the HOST program, the Department of Housing and Stability. And so we're looking forward today to hearing a lot more about folks who are living on the street, what programs the city has available, and what folks can do or look forward to trying to help out these people as they move through life. So Britta, with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Good day, everyone. It's great to be here with your Rotary Club. I have been a member of the Optimists and was a member of the Wheat Ridge Optimist Club. And they kind of tolerated my pragmatism coming through because I was the first member to have a couple babies while being an Optimist member in a very long time. And so it's just great to be with others who believe in civic good and service to the community. So thanks for having me today. So what is HOST in the Department of Housing Stability? I'm going to give you a little background about what we do, how we function across the spectrum of housing, and how we address many of the needs that we see here in the community. So Mayor Hancock created the Department of Housing Stability with a stroke of his pen in October of 2019. And what this did that was different than before is that we used to have homelessness being supported in one part of the city, housing being supported in another part of the city, and then many agencies contributing as well. What this did was join that all together in one place where those who needed housing were connected with the housing resources in the same department. So we really have this vision of a healthy, housed, and connected Denver for all Denver residents. We do this through investing resources, through policy decisions, through partnerships, and making investments that help to resolve episodes of homelessness, help to provide housing stability, and create and preserve housing opportunities, basically affordable homes. So how we work, we have three main pillars in our plan and in our department, but we really start from the perspective of equity. We no longer want race to predict someone's housing outcomes. We also are working on housing stability, keep people in the homes they're already in, and help to prevent involuntary displacement. For housing, that's for housing stability. For housing opportunity, it is creating and preserving affordable homes. So preserving means we have homes that we've already helped to pay for and bought a certain time of affordability. We want to keep that rolling, want to keep that affordability going. So we preserve that investment. We also have what's called naturally occurring affordability. Do you remember when it seemed like you could find apartments at $1,100, $1,000 a month? That kind of natural affordability has largely been going away in our community as we've become a high cost housing community. So another way of preserving is to buy that naturally occurring affordability and keep it affordable. And then finally, homelessness resolution is really about how do we can end an episode of homelessness. And when we have episodes, hopefully they are rare. And if they occur, they are brief and one time. And then finally, we have to have operations. We have to have people pushing through contracts, processing invoices, making sure that we are worthy stewards of the city dollar, the taxpayer dollar. So in this last year, we served more than 11,000 in shelters, more than 1,300 through what we call outreach. That's going directly to someone who's on the street sleeping rough and helping to connect them to services and to housing. We also do rehousing and supportive housing. We served more than 1,800 this last year. In our 5-year plan, we are moving towards 3,000 being served every year with those programs. Rehousing is quite simply somebody has no longer has housing, they are unhoused, and we have restored them to housing. We call that rehousing. And supportive housing means that there is housing and we have put appropriate supportive services around that housing to help someone maintain their housing. This could be primary or mental health care. This could also be employment services and landlord relations. So those are some of the terms that we see here. What we do know about who we serve is that they are disproportionately Black, Indigenous, and people of color. 57% of those we served on our street outreach team are BIPOC. 55% in our shelters. This compares to 46% overall in our Denver population. So that is a disparity that we need to address. We also serve more women in our rehousing programs, as well as those who are over age 55. And then finally, what we know about people experiencing homelessness is that more than 40% have a disabling condition. This compares to about 25% nationally. We also helped to create and preserve 600 homes, affordable homes last year. I often get asked, what causes homelessness? Homelessness is a symptom of other problems and policy failures. We see a lot of people who are simply unable to afford housing. Let me say that again more directly. I get asked, why has there been this increase in homelessness? It's because more people have had some kind of crisis in their life, which means they are no longer with housing. And so it's quite simple. And that is the biggest reason that we see this homelessness is lack of affordability, that gap between wages and what it costs to rent or own a home. Other reasons that we see are things like escaping violence. Income has stayed flat, but their rent continues to go up and they get displaced. Health problems. We know that bankruptcies in this country are by and large through health problems that people are paying for. And overall, we see an impact from those racial disparities that I spoke of. We have a history in our country of redlining, of discrimination in housing, as well as some structural discrimination in our policies as government. So those are things that we have to dismantle if we no longer want to see those disparities. What we do know is that housing that is safe and affordable is the foundation to any solution to homelessness. There may be all these reasons or some of these reasons that someone has found themselves in a housing crisis that resulted in homelessness, but housing, that stable foundation, is part of the solution. Whether you need support in your health journey or in your employment journey, you need to have a place where you can get up, get clean, get ready for a day, prepare food. Without that, it is very hard to take care of other needs. So let me talk just a moment about COVID and how that changed things here in Denver and across our country, quite frankly, and in all of our lives. But we're specifically going to talk about how COVID changed this landscape. We saw a 270% increase in rent and utility assistance applications. We had people who had never before had trouble making rent, who now were in a place where they were really struggling and under threat of eviction and needed some help. We also had a loss of 56% of our shelter beds pretty much overnight, because when we understood that COVID passed through close contact, we had to physically distance people. And our shelter models are not about physical distance. They're about getting as many people out of the elements as possible. So we really had to set up more spaces at the same time that we were seeing more people have a housing crisis resulting in homelessness. The libraries and rec centers closed. Many are starting to open, but it has been a long time, and that's a place where people get services. We saw 41% of people discharged from our jail system here in Denver, but not always with a housing plan, and they ended up in the shelter system or on our streets. We also had hospitals closed for non-emergent procedures. We had 4 times the unemployment rate. We had 19% increase in Medicaid enrollment. I say all of these things because that was the context. That's what we saw happening and unfolding in real time. And I'm so proud of the service providers and the community members, the National Guard, who all stepped in to really help serve people in this pandemic response. Because of that collaboration and that community support, we were able to see an increase in our guests and shelters of 64%. When you look at the 2 weeks before the pandemic and a year later. So that is a big increase. That's almost 1,000 more people in our shelters now than there were. So that increase is a big part of who is experiencing homelessness. About 3/4 of people who are experiencing homelessness are in shelter. We have also really evolved our system of serving people experiencing homelessness from an overnight system where you queue up for services and then you have to leave in the morning to one that's 24/7, around the clock services. You have an assigned bed, you have a place to store your belongings. And that evolution has largely occurred in about a 6-week period at the beginning of the pandemic, and we've sustained that. About 24% of people experiencing homelessness are unsheltered or sleeping rough. They're the folks that you see outside. So our challenge overall is we have to address the needs of people who are sleeping rough and on the streets while we get to those solutions. So we need to both manage homelessness, which is very resource intensive, while we are resolving homelessness, also pretty resource intensive, in order to build affordable apartments. Just to say that in a different way, the last point in time count that was published before the pandemic said that there are 4,171 individuals experiencing homelessness in Denver on one night in January of 2020. If we were to build affordable apartments for every person that was experiencing homelessness on the night, and we took the assumption, let's say it's about $300,000 for an apartment in Denver to be built, and then we take that times 4,000 so that I have easier math, that is about 1.2 billion just in the capital construction costs. So we have really expensive solutions to managing homelessness, and the housing itself is also expensive. So I bring that up just to help people understand a little bit about what we're facing. What we do know about that housing is that it really works. Some of you may have seen that the social impact bond was talked about in the news quite recently over the last few weeks. And what it did was to really do a rigorous control test. So we looked at people who had been jailed 8 times in a year. We looked at people who were in the emergency rooms and had no known address, that they were unhoused, or they had a shelter as an address. That was a group of people that is substantial. And then 350 were served with housing right up front, and 350 were observed through the control period to see how they did at getting to housing and what those costs were. Those investors who helped us to invest in the housing up front knew that we would see some savings. What we didn't know is that we would see savings of more than half the cost of housing. That by reducing jail days and other expensive government services for some of those who are the most vulnerable and living on our streets and in our shelters, we saw a reduction in cost and cost avoidance of more than half the cost of housing. And housing has a much better human outcome for those who are our residents and needed that service. So supportive housing works. It's that housing plus these supports. The state of Colorado has done a similar study and has seen across other types of savings. We in Denver studied jail cost avoidance, but they looked at health, at emergency room visits, at Medicaid, at psych admissions, and justice involvement, and saw decreases across the board, which really has resulted in stable housing for between 80 and 90% of those who had previously been in our jails and our emergency rooms. So how do we address unsheltered homelessness? So we have congregate shelter. These are large places with many beds, what you might expect to think of your version of shelter. We also have housing. Not everybody goes through a shelter. Many go directly to housing. We have in the last year or so added a safe outdoor space, which is a harm reduction method. So we know that housing is the solution, but we're having trouble getting everybody there fast enough. So we reduce harm by having people in a managed tent environment in a managed campsite and introduce services that help people get towards housing. The other thing that we're doing more of, and this is new since the pandemic, is non-congregate shelter. We used to only do this for families in Denver. We are now doing it for really every household type, and it really helps us overcome some of the barriers to entering shelter. So we're taking motels and hotels, and we are using them as shelter. This allows people to get past some of the barriers around partners, pets, and property that we often see for entrance into our shelter system. And we never stop building. We're so glad to have folks like Jim Goddard who are helping us create affordable housing here in Denver. We have 1,000 city-funded affordable homes under construction right now. And under Mayor Michael Hancock, we have seen almost 8,000 affordable homes created. So we have never stopped building. It has not been enough to meet the scale of the need. So what are we doing now? In the time that I've come to the city in the last 3 years, we had an affordable housing started at about $15 million. It's been doubled. We have added the homelessness resolution fund, thanks to all Denver voters that supported that, about $40 million annually that will be here for us to do more of these programs. And then we have also added the emergency rental assistance program. This is federal dollars that are one time as part of COVID response that are helping us get rental and utility assistance out at basically 25 times the rate that we were getting it out before the pandemic. So that's a big picture look at our finances. And we have goals in our plan. So to wrap it up here quickly before we go to questions and answers, we are going to build 1,800 supportive housing units in the next 10 years. We are also going to implement 24/7 access to shelter, or in this case, keep it going since we got it started in the pandemic. We're going to build 600 units in projects that combine shelter and housing in one location. And we're also going to expand our support services, those supports that help people stay in housing. To date, just in 2021, our first year with this fund, we've already funded 160 supportive housing units. We have 440 beds that are now 24/7 and staying that way. And we have 220 households that are going to get rapid rehousing or have already received it. So these are the things that we're doing here in Denver. We do have this plan for our resources that's out for public comment right now. We would encourage you to go to denvergov.org/housing and read that plan and take our community survey. We have talked with more than a couple thousand people, but we want to make sure we've heard people well and that we're headed the right direction as a city and as a community in our response. So with that, I will take your questions.
Repeat the questions that are asked.
Certainly. Yes, over here.
Yes, I'm curious what the organization is doing to really try to market-based solution, get private developers involved.
The question was about how are we using market-based approaches as opposed to direct investment of taxpayer dollars. And there's several tools. We cannot do this alone. We can't build it fast enough with just government investment. We need market partners. And so we have, over the course of the history of the city, done many partnerships with our market-based partners, but there's one that is going to be a little bit more robust moving forward. And that's what's called like mandatory affordable housing or inclusionary affordable housing. And it's really saying that we want to see in any development a certain level of affordable homes being produced in that development or paying a fee in lieu of. So that's being studied right now, and that's a new area with the passage of House Bill 1117 earlier this year. We also work with any developers on negotiating outcomes. So when there's a large development like Loretto Heights, as an example, there's a negotiation to include affordability in that. There are also incentives like having expedited review. So planning, permits and review, getting it expedited or prioritized in the pipeline, and several other policy approaches, but those are just a few. Yes.
So in our Rotary Book Club, we read Evicted.
Mhm.
I'm sure you're probably familiar with
I am.
it. And one of the suggestions in the end was on vouchers and helping people stay housed by the government actually paying a portion of the rent and the person paying a portion.
Mhm.
Is Denver doing any?
We're doing quite a bit of that. So housing choice vouchers are probably one of the primary tools for housing affordability for many people, including like public housing. Many people are on those types of vouchers. What we know is that we are really excited about what the Biden administration has been talking about, which is universal vouchers. And let me tell you why. This is something that works. You have somebody pay what they can, 30% of their income for housing, and the government helps to subsidize. That has been very effective, but only at game show odds. Right now, when you look at who's eligible for that type of housing assistance, only 1 out of every 5 families is getting that. And that is a is a hard thing for people to be on long waiting lists and to have actual literal lotteries to find out whether or not you're going to get housing assistance. The Biden administration has talked about universal vouchers, which means that all 5 of the 5 would qualify and get that voucher. So that would really change the landscape. It would not, however, fix supply and making sure that we have all the places that will accept those vouchers. So we need to do a bit of both, right? We need people to be able to afford their rent, but we also need to build places that will accept those. Everybody is supposed to a source of income, but to get to real depth of affordability for the lowest incomes, we need additional subsidy.
Just make one comment. I thought it was amazing that they said that it costs so much less to do that than to deal with the homelessness and people on the streets and the calls to police and everything else that entails. So I'm impressed by that.
Yeah, that study, the question was about the costs of having the vouchers versus the costs of managing homelessness that I talked about. That study from the state actually showed that people experiencing homelessness can cost as much as about $49,000 per year. And if we took that money and put it into a voucher, it's usually around $20,000 or so a year. And it's just a lot better investment with a better outcome than all of those emergency services.
One more question.
Question back there? Yeah, the question was about an article and how Mayor Kaufman from Aurora observed that there are those who are going to shelters and those who are living outside and most in encampments. And so that was my slide earlier that said about 3/4 of people are seeking shelter and are finding it in Denver. We have available beds and have kept available beds throughout the pandemic. And then about 24% are living or sleeping rough. Now, some are encampments and some are not. Encampments are unmanaged, very chaotic. There are it attracts people who want to prey upon those who are vulnerable, and it can be correlated with crime. We also see that there are some people who are really failing out of our systems, like I was talking about before, where we see these proxies that are keeping people from treatment for like substance misuse and mental health. If somebody can't get into intake without their ID, they're still out on the street. And even Mayor Kaufman had his identity stolen in his 1-week experience on the street. It's a very common crime. And then we also see that many of the opioid addicted and those who are suffering with substance misuse, if they are experiencing homelessness, they're more likely to be on meth. because that helps you stay awake and alert, which people want on the street. And so we see a lot of exclusions from both private and public service for people on MEF. And so it keeps having people who are failing and not able to access those services kind of piling up in our street. And so we have both a high policy level of things to address, as well as the basics of hygiene and sanitation and housing. Well, thank you all for your very considered questions.
Thank you so much, Britta. We really appreciate you being here. You're a rock star. You got your whole talk in, even in some shorter time. So we really appreciate you being here. In honor of your being here today, we are giving a donation to our Rotary Foundation Polio Plus efforts. And thanks to a 2-to-1 match from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, 100 kids will be inoculated against polio. So thank you so much. Last two comments here. Next week is Rotary Happy Hour. So we're not going to be here for lunch next Thursday, but rather we're going to be here for a happy hour next Thursday evening. And so make sure that you pop over. It's 4:30 to 6:30. So make sure to keep an eye on that for the happy hour. Last month we did it, and it was a fantastic event. A lot of great time. Yeah, it was a great time. So definitely come join. I mean, how can you say no to that, right? And then you'll also see that on the table there are some books courtesy of Mr. Deneen here, and he has mentioned that there are more of them. He brought enough for everybody, if I'm not mistaken, and they are out in the lobby here. So so go check those out. If you want to get out around town, make sure to check those out. It seems like it's going to be pretty cool. I know that I'll be adding it to my list of trail books. And lastly, let's do the 4-way test of the things we think, say, or do. Is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And thank you so much for being here. Have a great weekend. Cheers.